But when Diane and I first came to Montana, we came as Mission Service Corps missionaries to be regional coordinators for the state of Montana. Of course, we didn't know how to do any of that. And so we needed some training. And God provided some training from this lady, Chrissy Tell. I'm going to invite her to stand up. And her husband, David. And they came all the way from Tennessee and trained us on how to be Mission Service Corps missionaries. And so this is how I got to know Chrissy. And so I invited her to put together a team to come help us do VBS this week. And so I invite the rest of the team now to stand up if you would. And I'd just like everyone in our audience to give them a good hand. You guys can be seated. I just want to thank you so much. They are giving up their time, talent, energy, and everything to come help us reach our circle of influence here in this valley. And I am so grateful to you guys and all that you were giving to us. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. And we're excited to have you here this week. So everyone in the church family, be praying for them and come and help us tonight, tomorrow night, Tuesday night, and Wednesday night to maybe see God do a movement in the children of our community and to see them raised, come to know Him as their Lord and Savior. I'm excited about the opportunity to baptize maybe some of these kids because we've got a river baptism coming up August 6th. And God's great in timing and He helps us out and do a lot of things. But I'm anticipating that we're going to have some children that come out of this and say, yeah, I want to get baptized too. And we've already got 6 or 7 candidates that want to get baptized in the river. So be praying for those candidates because when they step forward and say, yeah, I want to get baptized, guess what? The enemy also says, no, you don't. And so he'll throw roadblocks in the way of all kinds of things. So be praying for them because it's their public statement that I'm a Christian, that I believe in Jesus Christ, and that He rose again. So pray for those individuals that are willing to come forward for that. And then I just want to extend to you how much I have appreciated our missionary that's been serving us the past couple of months, Brian Cordell. Would you guys just give him a big hand? Tirelessly done whatever I've asked him. I mean, he's been a true missionary. There's not anything he didn't say yes sir and just go do it and work his heart out. And I've asked him to do a lot. I mean, I put him up there in the room cleaning in the heat of the day. You know, he come out of there sweating, but he got it done. Let me tell you. So I just appreciate him so much. But he's also set in with us as we prepared the sermon for today and put good spiritual wisdom. He's been to college. He knows his Bible well, and so he's just a maturing Christian in his walk with the Lord. Now, we talked about him having an opportunity to speak to you. And so today we're continuing in our sermon series, Jonah. And today it is about depression and how that can affect our lives. And so Brian has really an awesome testimony with a little bit about that in his life. So he's put that together. He's going to come share his testimony with you. And I think we might do a few more of these this fall, sharing our testimony. So Brian's going to come. Brian, can you come on up? And you guys be praying for him as he shares this testimony to you about what God did in his life and how he come to know Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. So I think they got a mic up there for you, Brian. You want to hear me?
No? Yes? Hello? Hey! Hi, everybody.
Hey, Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Good. Yeah, so Pastor Stan, he's teaching on depression today, and I offer to share my testimony. Some of y'all know it, some of y'all don't. And yeah, so it starts with a house fire, unfortunately. My grandfather, when I was in kindergarten, he died in a fire. And that set off a chain of events which basically left us financially broke. And so since then, until my sophomore year of high school, we had to move around at least once a year, sometimes twice. And so we would stay with family and just anywhere we could, really. So I like to tell people I stayed everywhere from a old-style 2-story brick house with an in-ground pool to a motel on the middle of the highway. And I have. So growing up like that, I didn't really socialize a lot. I didn't set down roots because I knew I would just be leaving again. And so this made me a prime target for bullies and stuff. And after a while, I started believing the things that they were saying about me because I just didn't have anyone to tell me differently. And so this left me with a lot of bitterness and a lot of rage. And on top of that, my parental figures weren't the best. Praise God, their vices are over with today. But growing up, my uncle was an alcoholic, and my grandmother, she was addicted to pills of different sorts. And so this left me with a lot of bitterness, a lot of rage, and all that accumulated and came to a halt when I was kicked out of a church, actually, out of a Southern Baptist church. Yeah. But that left me with emptiness. It took all the rage and it kind of just poured it out. I knew that my life wasn't good, but I didn't know what to do because here was a place that was unconditional love. At least, on television, they're shown as unconditional loving people. And even they kicked me out. So this left me with a bunch of hopelessness. And for the longest time after that, I was honestly a walking corpse. I didn't care about anything. I was dead. I would, to get a little graphic, most days my thoughts were filled with suicide, and most nights I was trying to work up the courage to actually do it. When I wasn't thinking about that, I was either in school or I was sleeping the rest of the day away. And this went on for quite a few years. Obviously I'm here today, so that's nice. But yeah, so I got bored one Wednesday night doing the whole sleeping thing. And there was a church I could walk up to right up the road. For a little bit of context, we had just moved back to my hometown of Travelers Rest, and this was a place that I hated absolutely. I didn't like anything about it because this is where that church kicked me out. This is where all of my situations had been at their worst. And so I went to church thinking they have fun, games, pizza, all that sort of stuff. Didn't really care about the lesson. I think I walked out the first few times I started doing the lesson. So I'd show up, eat, play some games, and then go home after that. And then after a while, they forced me to stay for the lesson. And so, just wanted to get it over with because I was annoyed anyway. I sat through them, and after a while, I kept staying for the lessons. And because I could see myself in every one of them. For honestly 6 months straight, every Wednesday night lesson, I could picture my life into it. I could see myself as the central character. And so 6 months later, at a Christmas pageant, don't know why, but halfway through it, I felt this immense sort of hug. If anyone's ever been like hugged from behind or something, it kind of felt like that, and it was really warm. And I just knew that in that moment I wanted to give my life to Christ. And 2 months later, I figured out what that actually meant, because it takes a little while to process that sort of life change. And I surrendered my life. Yeah, and so since then, God has been faithful. Like I said, my parental figures, they worked on almost all of their vices. There's a few things that they're still getting a grip on. My grandmother, she claims to be a Christian now, and her life, I see a life change in it. My uncle, he's married with a daughter doing very well. And as for me, I'm the first person in my family to graduate college. I actually met the youth pastor who kicked me out of his church later on through my education. We had to do an interview, and I got to apologize to him, and I got to apologize to the church. So I praise God for that moment, because it's just a powerful story of redemption, because he did not think I'd be there in front of him doing youth ministry. So yeah, I graduated North Greenville with a bachelor's of youth ministry, and now I'm here missioning for all you wonderful people, and I love it. Pastor Sam told me to say that. I'm kidding. I really do love all of you. And then I'm going to go home, in a couple of weeks, which is really sad, but I'm going to get my first apartment with some friends. friends, and I'm applying to be a missionary overseas for 2 years. So that's sort of what God is doing with my life now. And I think I need to turn it back to Pastor Stan.
That was an awesome testimony, Brian. Thank you very much. And I'm going to mess with your stuff here, I guess.
I didn't set that there. Go for it.
Give me just a minute as I get set up. Has everybody else got a minute, right? Well, you notice some of our stuff is sitting down here. Originally, it was hanging up here. But, you know, it had an accident, and so it's all down. But you guys know what's going on. So this is some of our cool stuff that is here. And I just appreciate all the work that's been being done at the church. Thank you for volunteering to bring food and different stuff in here to help us with Vacation Bible School this week. There was a list given out, so thank you for helping bring those necessities. Today, dealing with depression, Jonah chapter 4. That's where we're going to be at. So anybody need a Bible this morning? I'm glad I put one in your hands. We got Bibles we can give away free. You can take them home with you. But if you need a Bible, just raise your hand. We'll give it to you. We'll have some of the verses up here on the screen, but I also like to be able to give you a Bible if you'd like one. So we're going to be in Jonah chapter 4, which is one of the minor prophets. If you open the Bible kind of out to the middle, he's right in there in the Old Testament, in amongst all those little prophets like Micah and Obadiah and all those kind of guys. So find Jonah. It's only 1 or 2 pages long, so it's easy to miss. But I just want to thank Brian for sharing his testimony. He's went back and he's been helping us in youth church with Pastor Robert. And so thank you, Brian, for your testimony. But here's my question. Who hasn't dealt with depression, right? At some point in your life, you've dealt with some form of depression. Now, it may be just kind of light depression, or it may be severe, like what Brian suffered through. But what is depression? And when you think about depression, I want you to think about it is something, it's just what it means. Pressing down, okay? Depression is something that is pressing down, more likely, on your heart. Okay, so here's an example. If you can think about pressing down, the nice fluffiest pillow you've ever seen. And you guys know those old irons, you know those old cast iron irons that people used to use generations ago? All right, place that puppy right in the middle of that pillow. And if you place it on there, and then overnight, you know, it's just going to settle down, and it's just going to press itself into that pillow. Now overnight, if you just do it overnight, you can get up and you can take that iron off and kind of fluff the pillow up, and more likely it's going to come back out of it, right? But what happens if you leave that iron on for, say, a week or a month? If you leave it on there long enough, it's going to make permanent impression on that pillow. Depression can be like that. So today we're going to talk about how did Jonah and Jonah's type of depression, and how God dealt with Jonah in this depression. So when a heart gets pressed down, it just enters into a state of depression. And there are all kinds of things that can cause the heart to move into that area. Now Jonah's depression came from anger and displeasure. You heard Brian's testimony this morning. He had a lot of anger and displeasure. And it led to sleeping and suicidal thoughts. Now Jonah, he didn't like what God was asking him to do. So he got angry about it. He was displeased about it. And the reality of life, the reality of our life, may not be what we expected, right? I mean, some mornings we wake up and, man, I did not want to wake up in this position at all. And so we ask ourselves the question, how did we get here? How did we get here? And so I've asked myself that question sometimes, especially when God has been doing work in my life. I woke up one time and said, how did I get to Montana? You know, I'm from Wyoming. So God moved me here to Montana. Now I had Brian, and he's a man of multiple talents. I want you to know this. He has worked with us in tech. He has worked with us on sermon material, teaching the students, and then everything else that I've asked him to do. So I asked him to create a graph for me because I'm not good on the computer. And so I asked him to do me a graph with emojis, okay? And so this explains Jonah's emojis. All right, yeah. All right, so he did this, and so we worked on this. And so the first chapter is, I want you to know, look at this. This is Jonah. When God tells him, I want you to go to Nineveh, he kind of does the wing thing and then runs off to Joppa, right, to get on the boat. And then, so he gets on the boat and he's running from God, and then God deals with him. And so the next one is he returns to God. And he's in the belly of the fish, and then he finally repents, and the fish pukes him out on the ground, and he begins to move towards God. So he's been going from God, but now he's been moving towards God. And then I want you to think about in chapter 3, he was obedient to God, but he wasn't happy about it. So he was outwardly obedient to God. So he's just a little sly fellow. He's, I'm going to do what God wants me to do, but I'm not happy about it. I really, really don't want to be here. And so that's kind of that arrow. And then we reach chapter 4, and I didn't know how to do the graph on that one, so Brian did the arrow on that. He's just mad. Okay? And this leads us to where we're at today. And I want you to realize that Jonah chapter 4 leaves us wondering. Doesn't it? It leaves us wondering. And so I did this final one with lots of questions up there, and I want you to think about, after God has dealt with you in depression in whatever way, God wants to have a wholehearted relationship with you. God is ready and willing. He's got open arms. He wants to just love you and hug on you and give you the best in your life. And that's where we want to end up, is in that last one. And it's challenging. You can see what all Jonah went through. And this is a man of God. This is a prophet. So I want you to think about, just, if I don't know Christ, it's just my only journey. Hey, I know Christ, and my journey's been challenging. And so that's where we're at. Okay, thanks for that. Xavier, putting that up there. Now, Jonah was all alone in enemy territory, okay? And it was against his will. So think about that. Think about it. Think about if you were in enemy territory and you didn't want to be there and you were asked to do something you didn't really want to do. This began the depressing cycle in Jonah's life. It began to press down on him. He was angry about it. He didn't want to be there. He was frustrated with God because God had asked him to do that. And so he asked, well, why was Jonah depressed? It came from an angry heart and a heart of displeasure. How many of us sometimes have had that? Okay? I've had an angry heart. I've been angry at God. I've been so mad at God, just like Jonah. Have you been there? You know what I'm talking about, right? Why God? I don't understand. And so we have a lot of, why me? Okay? So if you found Jonah, let's look at chapter 4. We're just going to read the first 3 verses. And what I want you to get out of this, listen for this, all the I statements that Jonah makes here. Okay? So let me get my glasses on. And listen to this. This is Jonah chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. But Jonah was greatly displeased and became furious. And he prayed to the Lord. Okay, he's praying to God. In his furious, mad state, he says, please, Lord, isn't this what I said? While I was still in my own country. That's why I fled toward Tarshish in the first place. I knew that you are a merciful and compassionate God, slow to become angry, rich in faithful love, and one who relents from sending disaster. And now, Lord, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live. Oh man, is he sad, right? I mean, he's praying to God, telling him how sad he is. And he's so mad at God, he says, this is why I ran to Tarshish. I knew that if you had me preach to those people, they'd repent. And you'd have mercy on them, and you'd relent. And you'd make me look like a bad prophet. Because he was in good favor in Israel, okay? He said good stuff. Israel was doing all right. And now he's asked him to go to Nineveh. And what would happen if these people repent and you don't destroy them in 40 days? I'm going to look bad. I'm going to look bad. Jonah wasn't just angry. He was furious. furious. This is why I fled. It's not just about you, is it? And God had a plan for Nineveh. And we focus too much on self, can lead to depression. When we focus on self, it can lead to depression time and time again. It's all about me. Listen, Jonah's depression is a symptom of sin. Catch that. Jonah's depression is a symptom of sin. Now I want to say something here. I want to say that normal depression. Okay. Now listen, this is a description of normal depression. Normal depression looks like this: self-doubt, worry, danger, anger, no joy in your life. Okay? Now some of that can sound like sin, right? Okay, but this is just normal depression that we cycle through in our lives. But here's the thing. If we begin to dwell on it, it can lead to sin. Okay? It's how we deal with that initial entrance of depression. And so normal depression can lead to serious depression. Okay? And serious depression looks like this. It looks like acute anger, apathy, hopelessness, suicidal. Did we not just hear all those statements out of Brian? Every one of them. He was looking at night. He was looking, trying to figure out how to commit suicide. He was so hopeless. Listen, this is serious depression. And this is willful sin. And it's against yourself, and it's against others. And I dare say maybe there isn't anybody in here that's maybe not had brief moments of serious depression. It's challenging. It's a tool that the enemy loves to use. He loves to isolate us. He loves to get us thinking about, woe is me. My life is just not worth living. Nobody cares about me. I've been brought up in the worst conditions. Why am I here? Everything is all so bad about me. I remember when I was on the ranch, and you may think, man, he was on a ranch. And it was 8,000 acres, okay? But listen, I went through a time of serious depression on that ranch because it was so burdensome for me to try to take care of. I couldn't handle it. I'm so glad I'm not there anymore because it was all about physical things. And it was a burden I couldn't carry. I mean, I was that pillow and that iron was on me, and it had been hanging on me for weeks. I even had to take some pills. I went to the doctor. Now, I want you to hear me say that, you can't get help. But I took them very briefly, very shortly. And then I began to really turn my life to the Lord. I began to let go of the world. Now, I want you to know that Montana ranks in the top 3 states in the United States. It may bounce around a little bit, but in the top 3 states of depression, of people dealing with depression. I kind of tend to think it's probably mostly on the west side. Because they have a lot more clouds than we do. I like the sun and I like open country. All right? But listen, top 3. And we were looking up some statistics. Again, Brian here, he chipped in and helped me out. He says 1 in 5 people, so 1 in 5 of you, right here in this audience, are dealing with some form of depression right now, today, as you're here. I praise God you're here, because maybe you can get something good out of this to help you move out of that. But 7% of those are dealing with severe depression. 7% that are in that category thinking about committing suicide, are so unhappy, so miserable, so hopeless. 7% of us. That's tough. I want you to think about it. We think about Jonah being depressed, but there were other great men of God. Jonah, we think of him as a minor prophet, and he's just this little 4 little chapters. But there's another prophet that we know a lot about. You know who it was? Elijah. Remember Elijah? Okay, turn with me back to 1 Kings. Let's read Elijah's little story about his depression. I mean, he's known as one of the greatest prophets that God used, but he suffered with depression. In 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 1 through 4. Find yourself back to 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 1 through 4. Now this is, let me just set this up for you. God has used Elijah, and Elijah, he's on the mountain up here, and Mount Carmel, and God has done a miraculous thing. Okay, this is when he challenged the prophets of Baal to light a fire. You know, that he had to do it. And so these guys pranced around all day long, all night long. They cut themselves. They went through all kinds of things to get their God to light this offering on fire. And, of course, nothing happened, right? Obviously. Well, then it's Elijah's turn. He pours water on his offering, and he does all kinds of stuff. And he just cries out to God. He says, okay, God, and boom! It just smokes it. And it destroys it. And God just takes it. And then God uses Elijah to destroy those 450 false prophets. 450 of them. He does all this amazing stuff. And then look at his state. Now, this brings you up to chapter 19 and verse 1. It says, and Ahab, this was the king of Israel at the time. Okay, and we all heard about Jezebel. Ahab told Jezebel everything that Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, may the gods punish me and do so severely if I don't make your life like the life of one of them by this time tomorrow. Look at poor Elijah. Look what he does. Then Elijah became afraid and immediately ran for his life. And when he came to Beersheba, that belonged to Judah, he left his servant there. But he went on a day's journey into the wilderness, and he sat down under a broom tree and prayed that he might die. He said, I have had enough, Lord. Take my life, for I'm no better than my father's. Man, look at what Elijah had just accomplished. Not him, what God had accomplished through Elijah. And then he got afraid. And he began to move into a different kind of depression than what Jonah had. His was a depression of fear. Now just turn the page. I don't know, maybe you don't have to turn the page over, but there's a little bit more to this story in verse. Let me find it. Where God is talking to him in verse 10. Okay, so just look down a little bit further to verse 10. And this Lord, Elijah says, I have been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts, but the Israelites have abandoned your covenant, torn down your altars, and have killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are looking for me to take my life. I mean, he thinks he's the only godly man left in the nation of Israel. And God responds, no, I got 7,000 more. You know? But isn't that how we are? We get that self-pity going, and then we build on it, and then it isolates us, and then we just want to sleep, and we don't want to face anything, and we get apathetic about everything. Elijah faced those. Depression always seems to do that. Depression can come before or after great success. Depression can come after long periods of labor. It can affect your care for others and make you ineffective for God. That's what Jonah did. He became ineffective for God when he got on that boat to Tarshish. Man, he just wanted to get away from God. It affects your faith and it affects your witness. So God asked Jonah, I love this. I find so much humor in Scriptures. And so God asked Jonah, is it right for you to be angry? You know, haven't you ever had somebody say that to you, when you were a little kid? Is it right for you to be angry? And the Lord asked that. And Jonah, he felt he had righteous anger, didn't he? I mean, he was just so mad he could not see anything else. And listen, Jonah quit God. Have you ever been there? And you said, God, I've had enough. I don't want to go to church anymore. I don't want anything to do with you, God. Maybe you've quit your job. Or maybe you've thought about quitting your marriage. You just want to quit. I've been in all those positions. If you're honest with yourself, I'll bet you have too. You just wanted to quit. I don't want to get up and face another day of whatever it is. We all seek our own personal comfort, don't we? Because usually it stems from something we don't like. I've quit a couple of churches. I've quit, and I think about this when I'm standing up here speaking. I've quit a couple of churches simply based on a statement the pastor said. I've done it. Okay? And I didn't even bother to tell him why. I love Brian's statement. He went back and apologized. Sometimes we need to do that. Listen, God cares for all of us. He cares for all people. And He cared for Nineveh. And the church cares for all people. This church cares for all people. We care for the people of this valley. It's right in here in our bulletin on the first page. If you look in here, just very shortly down in the second or third line there, it says, love God and love others. I mean, we make this statement in our bulletin, but are we doing it? I think we are. I think we're starting to really move into that category where we're loving on others. I know some of them feel it when Robert gives them that hug. He's even pushed me into giving a few hugs. I'm introverted. I don't normally do hugs, but I'm getting to be more of a hugger simply because of Robert. And you know what? It feels good. Doesn't it? It feels good. So I appreciate that. So what was Jonah's answer to God? If you look at verse 5, it says, Jonah left the city and sat down east of it. He's mad. He's just, he made himself a shelter there and sat in its shade to see what would happen in the city. Now, Jonah, I think, was a pretty good preacher because he went through the city of Nineveh and they repented. So, I mean, he must have done it with some zeal, okay? But I don't think he was very good at building shelters. And so Jonah's answer was to go outside the city, and can't you just see him sitting there building this little shelter, just kind of slamming it together and sitting down and mad and then just sulking. You ever sulk? Yeah. That's a term word you don't hear a lot. Just, I'm gonna sulk. I'm gonna be mad. And I get up some mornings and I just sulk. I'm mad. I don't tell you. And I go back, Jonah, I can just see him saying, there, great. Now I'm going to be a prophet that's a false prophet. Because God's going to relent. He's not going to destroy them. They ask for forgiveness and He's going to give it to them. He's going to give them mercy. God began to teach Jonah about depression. Right? Spiritual correction by a lesson in God's sovereign mercy. God had a plan for them. We talked about last week in the message about how there's a parallel between Jonah and Israel and Nineveh being a prophet, and Jonah, running from God, but then coming back to God. And Nineveh they're not having anything to do with God. But when they hear the message, they move to God. But Israel has had everything. They've had the tabernacle, they've had the law, they've seen all kinds of miracles from God, they've had all kinds of prophets talking to them, but they don't turn back. They just continue on to move further away from God. God had a plan for Nineveh. I think God was going to show Israel, look, I can send one measly prophet to Nineveh, this great city, and they're going to repent, and I've sent prophet after prophet to you guys, and you don't pay attention to me at all. Sometimes we're like that. How often are we, I think about this setting in church. There were times when I was like that. I was setting in church and I was just like the nation of Israel. I've heard it over and over again, but I was still not next to God. If you have ever wondered how God corrects us, here's a great example. So let's continue on in verses 6 through 8. This is God correcting Jonah, or giving Jonah some insight, teaching him a lesson. And so maybe God might be speaking to you in this way. It says, then the Lord God appointed a plant, and it grew up to provide shade over Jonah's head to ease his discomfort. See, I don't think he was a very good builder right there. So Jonah was greatly pleased with this plant. I mean, you know, if you're sitting, you've been out here in the sun, it's been warm here, so you like shade. All right, so Jonah liked the shade, it was for his comfort. But when dawn came the next day, God appointed a worm that attacked the plant and it withered. And as the sun was rising, God appointed a scorching east wind. So he appointed a worm and an east wind. And the sun beat down so much on Jonah's head that he almost fainted and he wanted to die. He said, "It is better for me to die than to live." I mean, he goes from here to here. Have you ever experienced that? I mean, I've done that. I do that a lot on Sundays because sometimes I get myself up and I'm up here. And I go home and I can be, man, right here. So I know what he feels like. I'm not wishing to die, though. God used the plant, a worm, and a scorching east wind to teach Jonah about depression. Jonah was exceedingly glad about the plant. It added to his personal comfort, but his shelter wasn't so good. But God was teaching Jonah about personal comfort and enter the wind and the scorching. Enter the worm and the scorching east wind. Now let's look at how Jonah ends up. God asks him in verse 9. He says, "Then God asked Jonah, is it right for..." This is the second time he asked Jonah about two different things. He says, "Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?" And Jonah's reply is, "Yes," he replied. "It is right. I am angry enough to die." I've been in that spot. I've been so angry. And I'm sure many of you have. God was teaching Jonah to give up some personal comfort and to be more concerned about people. That's where we've got to move from. That's where that little graph actually ends up moving. This is where God wants us, is on that fifth one, where we've got our arms out and we're thinking about somebody else instead of thinking about ourselves. I mean, you've seen that picture, what is it, they're hugging themselves? I mean, that's what we want to do, right? We just want to hug ourselves sometimes, and we don't care about anybody else. On the ranch, I could care less about my neighbor when I was like that. Well, he's not having the same problem I am. I don't care. You know, I was so self-focused. That's right where the enemy likes us, and that's where we like to be ourselves. We don't have to have any help from the enemy to do that. Listen, compassion, hear me on this. If you want to take any kind of a note, and by the way, on the inside of this bulletin, there's a passage in here of dealing with, I just wanted to put it in there. You can cut this out and put it on your refrigerator. And this is just kind of a formula for it. 1 Thessalonians 5, 16 through 24. I didn't put it in my message, but I put it in the bulletin so you can have it. But God is teaching us how to have compassion and how to move out of that depression. So if you're in depression today, do something for somebody else. Okay? Just go do something for somebody else. It will begin to move you out of that because you begin to feel good about yourself. I'm glad that you helped someone else. Recognize the futility of your misplaced compassion. Okay? And then think about what you're most passionate about in that moment. I was the most passionate about, I don't like being on the ranch, everything's going wrong, nothing's going right. I gotta go talk to the banker again. Jonah pursued his personal idol. Did you hear that? What were Jonah's personal idols? It was anger and displeasure. And then that idol grew into depression. Depression's an idol. We like to feed it. I know I do. When I get into that cycle, boy, I just want to keep feeding it. That's all the thing I think about. Quit feeding that idol. Get away from that idol and pursue God. You must establish godly compassion for others. So the question is who are you angry at? And what enemy do you have that you wish God would just destroy? Think about this. The nation of Israel, when they were in line with God, God destroyed their enemies for them. They didn't even have to, they just had to show up and God would destroy them. So it was an expectation of them that God would just destroy their enemy. They never thought that God might save their enemy. Aren't we like that sometimes? If we're mad at somebody, maybe we're mad at the person we're renting from, or we're mad at our boss, or we're mad at somebody, And we just wish God would deal with them. Well, maybe the way God's going to deal with them is save them. Or He's going to use you to do it. So the question, why are you here? To live for God. And to love God and to love others. Back to our bulletin. It's that simple. It's not a complicated formula. Love God and love others. You won't be in that depressive mode. If you're dealing with depression this morning, I invite you to turn from self and find compassion for someone else. And here's what I'm going to do. Maybe you're one of those that has put a name on this cross this morning. I'm going to give you a to-do thing, okay? That will help you move out of depression. You put a name up here. If you haven't put a name up here, maybe you know someone. But here's what I want you to do. When you leave from church today, maybe they've got children, maybe they don't have children, but I just want you to reach out to that person that you've put up here on the cross. Or reach out to that person. You physically get on the phone or go visit them and reach out to them. And just say, hey man, I'm caring about you. What's going on in your life? How are you doing? Let God begin to use you. That's what we all got to do, right? Let God begin to use you. How do you do that? How do you let God have control? You invite God into your life. And you begin to have Him in every moment of your life, right? And you let Him guide you in every direction. So this morning, as Miss Audrey plays, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond to this message. In this, if you know the Lord, but you're dealing with some issues, maybe you just want to come up here and pray with me about it, or you just want to come up and pray this morning, I invite you to go ahead and do that. Come up and pray this morning. Turn it over to God. Let God have whatever it is that you're dealing with. If you don't know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior this morning, I invite you to come up and give your life to Christ. As you heard Brian share his testimony, he was hopeless. He was lost and bitter and didn't know where to go. But when he gave his life to Christ, when he let Christ become Lord in his life, look at what he's become. God is using him mightily. Maybe God's going to use you. So let's stand. Miss Audrey's just going to pray. And if God's working on your heart, don't hesitate. Come on up. Let me pray with you. I'll pray at the altar. And if you're uncomfortable with coming up here and doing that, then Diane and I will be back at our next step station.
Nice.
And you've got a communication card. You fill that communication card out and give it to me. And we'll pray for you. See what God does in your life. You let go